Are we right time?
Just a couple
Mike is-
seconds left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, Mike, well,
Yeah, Mike called and said he had a conflict, last minute conflict.
oh,
So he's not
okay,
gonna be here.
okay. Call the meeting to order. Have to approve the agenda. So moved. Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, comments, public comments on any agenda items?
I don't have any public comment.
No comments from me.
What does Pat always say? Hearing none, seeing none, we move on to communication shared by solid waste management board members. Hearing none. Any from the staff?
We can't talk,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
so.
Approval of minutes. So moved. Second. Motion made and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion action, consider approval of 2023 solid waste department budget.
Okay. So, at the last meeting, we went through, the final changes that that took place after our meeting with the executive. And, then the correction that subsequently followed. So I have the final version of the budget in packets, and I think there was a copy for each one of you. Again, the biggest impact was in our budget was the $1.1 million reduction in power sales. And we don't know anything more today than when we put the budget together, so that still holds. I guess the biggest change was with the change in the bowl rate to cover the two landfill operations, the shared MSW transfer station operational costs and the shared MSW hauling costs. Those two things kind of cancel each other out. If we're being charged more on the regional fee side of things, but our expenses for the transfer station and the hauling are paid for by the regional group. So, and then we have the MSW gate rate increase from $48 a ton to $52 a ton, so $4 increase.
Have we reached out to the municipalities or anything? Have they heard?
They've been
Yelled
made
at
aware
us?
of.
Have they?
No
Not
no
surprised.
feedback, but yes, we have reached out to all of this.
When Winnie got it, I did mention it to him, but I also said, but it's only $5 for recycling, so get more people to recycle.
There you go.
Yeah.
So our rate right now to our municipalities would then be less $3, so $49 a ton. And the bottom line, as you'll see in the document, the bottom line is net deficit of $1,498,125, and our retained earnings will be used to offset that deficit. So, at the last meeting, there was a number of board members that requested that we put this back on the agenda as an action item, so the board could take their formal action like we normally do. And then I guess it'll be passed along back to the executive and finance department, and we'll end up in the it's going to end up as an appendix again in the executive budget like it has been in the past. So, any questions or?
This is just kind of an informational thing for me because I'm new. But then, do I understand that the funding, our budget is kind of separate from the county budget?
Yes. Our budget is separate from the county board's budget or the executive's budget. So
Okay.
we're an enterprise fund. We operate, all our expenses are outside set by user fees or tipping fees for our customers.
Okay.
And we try to balance it out, and if we have excess funds at the end of the year, they go into retained earnings. if we have a shortfall, then we pull from retained earnings to balance our bill, and that's what the budget is showing for 2023.
Okay.
Well,
John, you should explain also that our employees are not counted in the number of employees for the county.
I think they are now.
They are.
Yeah, so last year, with last year's budget, they were added in, so our employee count and table of organization shows up in the general part of the executive budget now, and it will be that way again this year, so.
with, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna, John, this is unchanged from what you showed us a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And should know, I should dig in there. Are we showing any kind of income for energy sales, or is that?
400,000.
Okay. Okay,
And that was down from, 1.5.
yep,
So.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. So, I just wondered, going along with, what, Howard said, since I'm new at this, I understand that the county, when we, heard from the two women last time, they are, I'm just wondering if you could just reframe that for me so I can kind of understand. That is a new process now, is that correct? Where do you know what I'm saying?
CLA,
Yeah,
so previously
Oh.
Doug Petrozik, who was
Oh, the
in
financial
finance, used
report?
to do like the financial report, and they've always done it. But since Doug left their department, now they hired CLA, the accounting firm, to come in and do what Doug was doing. So that is what has changed, but finance has always done that annual
okay,
report.
thank you very much. So it's basically, yeah, so it's the same, it's just that now they're using a company.
Yes,
Right, but that's, has nothing to do with the budget.
Okay,
That's the two separate things. The annual comprehensive financial report, it used to be done more internal, and accounting firm kind of audited things, but the internal staff did the actual CAPR report. Now they farmed it out to a consultant because they don't have to do it anymore.
Yep.
okay, all right, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, sorry, I was confused.
Any other question? Discussion? Is there a motion to approve the 2023 solid waste department budget?
So moved.
Second. Made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. Great.
Discussion action on 2022 retained earnings fund allocation.
Okay. Well, this would have been nice for Mike to be here. He always has some valuable insight on things, but, I'll pull up, one.
do you want that updated?
Yeah, not that one. That one. So based on the. Yeah. So based on the final 2021 financials, we now have an actual total retained earnings fund balance of 34,350,577. I think there was a small adjustment that they were talking about having to make, but I haven't heard anything from the last meeting on that, but it's not going to change it drastically if they change it. So this is kind of a new format that we put together earlier this year. In the past, we were using a little different format, and it's kind of evolving over time. Cassie, if you could pull up maybe the 2021 version. So the second one from the top. So this is a version that we had been using for a number of years for retained earnings and the allocation amounts. It seemed to work for us for a period of time, but the further we got along in the process here, there was some suggestions to make it to kind of maybe simplify it a little bit. Maybe expand the categories or reduce the number of categories that we have funds allocated for. And then try to turn it into more of a kind of an annual cash flow that would show the influx, the outflux in different categories. So this is what the board has been approving up until this year. And so the previous version that Cassie was sharing is kind of the new format that we kicked around in April this year. Maybe you can go back to so what I did, since we got the final retained earnings balance, I adjusted a few things, but kind of similar to what we had been using for numbers in the past. The top one, future landfill siting development technology, keeping that at $10 million. If we need to purchase land, develop land, the Brown County example, they cost them about $20 million to develop a greenfield site. So we have 10 million in there. If we're going to go and move forward and do some more gas utilization system upgrades, renewable energy, and or solar, I've put $3 million in there. We do have some earmarked for the 2023 budget, $1 million to upgrade our flare and compressor system. But we have some extra there in case we want to do more with that. $6 million in new waste recycling transfer station and resource recovery park. We have $140,000 included in the 2023 budget to do kind of a master planning exercise for this site and the transfer station side of the street. But these would be, if we need to dip into capital to pay for a big upgrade, this is where we have it marked. Tri-County single stream recycling facility upgrades. We put $2 million in there. Fortunately, we've been able to take care of most of the capital equipment upgrades by setting aside within the 3-county group, setting aside a kind of a reserve for equipment upgrades. You know, as this equipment is aging, the plant was built in 2008, 2009, so a lot of the equipment is starting to get to end of life. So we're starting some upgrades, but we've been able to fund the majority of it to date with internal operational revenues. But we wanted to have a little bit set aside here in case we need to kick in more funds as a group to expand the tipping floor or add additional robotics to offset the issues with sorting labor that we're having. Operational cash flow and capital outlay, that was $2 million previously. We upped it to $3 million, 30% of our $10 million operational budget. Closure long-term care beyond the DNR escrow period, I've got $5 million in there. We had some higher amounts in the past. You know, right now we have somewhere in the neighborhood of $10.5 million in our long-term care escrow funds for the 2 landfill sites here. They have approximately 35 and 33 years to go. Whether that amount of money lasts and covers it for the entire 40-year period, that's unknown at this time, but we've always put in some extra money because once that 40-year period ends and our escrow funds are exhausted, they still have to be paid for. So And then the big wild card that continues to be talked about on a statewide and national level is the impacts of PFAS regulations associated with our leachate, groundwater, and surface water. And we still don't really know what the playing field is like yet. Some of it's been more focused currently on drinking water supplies. So different cities that have drinking water systems, they've been doing testing for a period of time to kind of gauge what their levels are like and how the state limits are going to impact them. There is a discussion about a 20 part per trillion limit. At the time, the federal limit was 70 parts per trillion. The DNR enacted a 70 part per trillion limit. So a number of these municipalities that are showing limit or levels in around the 20 part per trillion range are, I guess they're okay for the time being, but some of them are trying to be proactive and put systems in place to bring it down closer to, closer to zero. But
Is the system in place, is that reverse osmosis system that they're bragging about, or doesn't that get rid of the?
no, I think from what I've read, the cities, municipalities that are putting in systems is more of a granular activated carbon system. So we go through a series of filters and to bring down the levels. Where it would bring it down to, probably 20 to 5, something like that, depending on how much you want to spend. But then it's like the question mark, then, okay, you got the PFAS concentrated in this granular activated carbon that needs to be, taken out and replaced all the time. What do you do with that? Where does that go? So I think there's still a lot of uncertainty out there, and I know Pat O'Brien sends me regular articles from different parts of the country on, PFAS and related to, drinking water systems or landfills and that sort of thing. So we have $5 million set aside for that once we know, I guess, how it might impact them. So, we have leachate that goes out to the city of Oshkosh wastewater treatment plant. From what I've heard, their levels of effluent going out of their plant are relatively low. I haven't seen exact numbers, but relatively low compared to that 20 limit. So we actually have a annual inspection from the city tomorrow afternoon, where they come around and look at our leachate systems and our pretreatment for hydrogen sulfide, and hopefully we can garner a little more information from them tomorrow where they're at in their process. But previously, when Zach was still working here, the conversation last year was more along the lines of, if they end up having to do something, add additional treatment, they would do it at the plant and then basically charge the user. So they wouldn't necessarily be requiring the users to do the cleanup all individually. They would handle it on a city level, but that's still up to them as well. So, but we also have groundwater. We're monitoring groundwater around the site. The groundwater level has yet to be determined by the DNR. It sounds like they've gone back into the process of revamping their proposed rule language and limits. And that'll be going back to the Natural Resource Board, I think, later this year. But a lot of uncertainty there. So what I did is I tried to balance these fund items and the allocation amounts to somewhat mimic the balance of the retained earnings. I guess that's what I've got draft in place here. I want to show you one other thing related to Brown County. Brown County has a similar system in place. That one. But it's put together by their finance department in conjunction with resource recovery. So I guess this is what I think we're trying to work toward. And it'll take some input from our finance department once things get stabilized down in that department. But so on the top left-hand side, this was their balance 1/1/21, and their designated, they don't call it retained earnings, but their designated funds are long-term care. They've got closure for the different sites that still will require some closure work in the future. Research, site acquisition, capital depreciation. The phase construction would be for the South landfill site, and when you get down to 2022, that balance is greatly reduced. Rate stabilization, environmental repair, showing unrealized gain loss, interest receivable, and then operating cash. So at the beginning of 2021, their balance was 43.6 million. They show revenues, the additional columns, other financing sources, interest, expenses, capital items, and then they show end of year balance. So I think this is something kind of what Mike Easter was referencing. Maybe we look toward doing that shows kind of the inflows into the fund and the outflows from the fund on an annual basis. And I guess once things in the finance department calm down a little bit, we will be talking with them about trying to help us put something together like this for the solid waste board. So
Pat,
John, I'd like you to explain to the new board members when we talk about long-term DNR closure funds and all that stuff. You know, what just explain to them how much of a yearly, you know, how many years we have for liability, which goes on for, you'll explain it to them. If you could.
sure. So I guess what happens with landfills when they're operating, you're required to set aside enough dollars for long-term care of the facility and also the closure of the facility. So if you were a shady private landfill owner that all of a sudden took all the money and just skipped town, you would have money set aside to cover the DNR stepping in and closing the landfill and taking care of it for a period of 40 years. So up front, we've set aside all these escrow funds for long-term care, 40 years for both the sites here, and then closure. Now, we've already gone through the closure funds because we closed both the landfills here. So those kind of came off the books. Any remaining dollars went into the long-term care funds. But what we budget as an estimate is about $300,000 a year for the co-disposal site and $100,000 a year for the sludge site. And that's what's included in the 2023 budget. What the actuals are kind of vary from year to year, but what we're looking at and then what we do is on an annual basis, we submit what the actual expenses were for taking care of the long-term care for the two sites. We submit that to the DNR. They review it. They have a big spreadsheet calculation, and then we're requesting that we get 300,000 back and 100,000 back. They approve it, so then we transfer money from that escrow fund, which is held by US Bank. There's two accounts that comes into the general fund to offset our expenses, and so those escrow funds slowly go down. I mean, there is some interest earned on those, but it's a little more aggressive of an investment than the county's general fund can do. But I know the last 2 years, it hasn't been performing all that well because of markets and whatnot. But so it's like a little shell. I mean, it's a little game that we play, but they just want to make sure that the landfill owner operators have the money set aside in case something were to happen. The funds are there to take care of the site. So, but after the 40-year period, it doesn't mean we don't have to take care of them. So after that 40-year period, we request the remaining escrow funds if there's any left, which you would have to have some left. You'd request reimbursement of that, and then it would basically become an operational item. And that's when you'd start drawing out of retained earnings, whatever you have earmarked for long-term care, you'd start drawing out of that. So, you know, for instance, right now, the Snell Road landfill came off the long-term care period back in 2012. By the time all the paperwork got taken care of, it was like 2014. But that is, you know, so that's fully funded by our operation. So, and that's in our budget. I want to say that was somewhere in the $500,000 range for taking care of the Snell Road site issues there. So, these are going to continue to be expenses that the solid waste department will be responsible for in the future. And so that's why we want to have enough money set aside in retained earnings to pick up the slack once the escrow periods end. So, Pat, did that answer your question? Or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there any end in sight to the length of time that you have to monitor the landfills? Does there ever become a period of time when you can say, yeah, let's turn this into a park and be done with it, or some such thing?
There isn't kind of an end period, but it's not like a hard end. It's like maybe a phased approach, you know, as the site is closed for a longer and longer period of time. You know, maybe you can request the DNR to back up the monitoring instead of, you know, quarterly or semi-annual monitoring. Maybe you can go to annual monitoring. You know, as the gas generation wanes down, you might be able to, you know, limit the amount of effort you have to spend monitoring and adjusting the gas system. You know, some of the old sites, you know, they went from, you know, an active gas collection system, and they end up being a passive system where there really isn't much gas being generated anymore. So it just kind of vents to the atmosphere. There is an end period out there, but what, you know, it's not really definitive as far as the number of years. It depends on the site and the conditions at the site. So,
Well,
Yeah, you can do like they did up in town of Menasha, where Jerry Finch was chairman. They built the municipal building right on the landfill. And now the village is spending $250,000 to remediate every year to avoid the gas closing the municipal building. Thank you, Mr. Finch.
and overly simplified it. Having been on the board when the landfill was open, it's like, this is a cash cow. I mean, there's cars lined up, they're all flipping $50. They're just dumping garbage into a big hole in the ground, and we've got the generator generating $3 million worth of electricity, but the whole system is to stash all that money. I always hesitate for anybody to know that we've got 30-40 million in the bank, because we're going to need all of that to get us through for 40 years.
Right.
So was fun while it lasted. Now we got to stretch it as, and just for the record, the landfill closure, 40 years, I'm good with that. I'm not gonna worry about it after 40 years, just personally, but let's see where the rest of you might. Okay, anything?
yeah, so I don't necessarily have this in like a final format. I was wishing that Mike Easter would be able to be at the meeting today to provide some additional feedback, but if the board felt like they wanted to take action on the allocation amounts for the different fund items, we can approve it and kind of have it as like the final for 2022, And if we want to pick it up later this fall, I mean, we certainly can. We've made adjustments throughout the year. And if we get a little further along with this cash flow version of kind of what Brown County has, we can bring it back to the table and talk about it again.
Do you prefer we approve it now, or do we hold it until next month's meeting and let Mike take a look at it?
I'll move that we approve the,
Yeah.
retained earnings report.
Second. Okay. Paul?
Yeah. Well, I've always been an advocate of sharing the wealth. And what I mean by that is our system consists of those municipalities in Winnebago County who have chosen to be part of the Winnebago County landfill to deliver their waste and recyclable to Winnebago County Department. There are a handful of municipalities that have chosen not to, one of which is Talahaka. And they're outside of our system. From time to time, there have been discussions and needs at the municipal level as haulers have turned over. City of Menasha, City of Oshkosh, and City of Neenah have their own garbage department. They have their own trucks. They do their own hauling. Others of the municipalities hire private contractors to do that. Back in a day, when there was a consolidation and a reduction of haulers and a need to find new haulers to fill the void, I was an advocate to encourage those existing municipalities with a garbage system to contract with the municipalities like town of Midland to be in the Oshkosh range, common Yakaima to have their hauling done by City of Oshkosh and take money from our retainers to encourage this and to help fund the new equipment, the establishment of a larger workforce, and that would be the same with Village of Fox Crossing, because it's a natural. My district includes City of Menasha and Village of Fox Crossing. I can cross the street from my house. In fact, it's the City of Oshkosh territory. So they're very closely knitted, and it would make sense, to establish that. But it's a matter of money. I saw that as a potential use for these funds. Mike Esker was of the bent that we should establish a need to disperse to help avoid the excess accumulation of the retained earnings. And I think that's what John wants to retain, because Mike Eska is the finance director for the city of Lehman. And so he's well schooled in this matter, and he has been expressed opinion that are valuable to the board's decision making. So I'll leave it to the presiding chairman and to the director to go forward in their wisdom on this topic. I've always appreciated the opportunity to put in my 2 cents, even if they didn't listen to me. But probably when the county code is revised, we'll no longer have the power to raise taxes from the solid waste management board.
Okay, I believe we have a motion made and seconded to approve the funds. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Good.
Director's report.
All right. Why don't you just pull up accommodation? No.
I don't think it's.
Can't do that. There we go. Okay, I wanted to let you know, back in July, we had that fire in the transfer station. We had a number of staff that went above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that things were addressed, extinguished, property damage was limited, and we were ready to open the following Monday to all our customers. So I had put together some memos commendation memos to HR for a number of staff. Now, this is an example of the emails that were sent out yesterday by the HR director to all the applicable staff. So Kathy Hutter, Cassie Stodmiller, Ryan Callis, Jack Dodd, former employee Kurt Neitzel, Joe Thompson, and Edie Tews are one of our associates, all got the memorandums, commendation memorandums that I had put together along with an email like this that basically says, you know, it's not every day we receive commendations from department supervisors regarding actions that truly exemplify teamwork, flexibility, and exceeding expectations in the pursuit of ensuring that our operations of the county continue regardless of the challenges faced. Certainly the issues with the fire at solid waste in July were exceptional and out of the ordinary. What was also exceptional was your part in the response to the situation. I wanted you to be aware of the included commendations, so he attached the memo that I included, had sent to HR, submitted by your department head, and have a copy yourself. John has been vocal to the county executive and other department heads regarding the great work done by his team. Your willingness to pull together with others on your team is helping to create the culture of teamwork that we are striving to build. Thank you for your efforts. A copy of this commendation has been placed in your personnel file in human resources. So for each one of those employees, they got the same email and the memo that I had put together. The one employee, Kurt Neitzel, that left the county, unfortunately, they were actually going to mail him a copy of the note from HR and the memo that we had put together. So looks like Shauna's got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So because again, I'm new to this, so I refer to you as chair. Okay, so I think
I'm in
last,
charge of bikes.
okay, all right,
Yeah.
thanks. So, I wondered if, we would seek to share this, get your feedback on sharing this to the county board. We did a small, Jim and I worked last time on doing a small, like Cassie helped get some bullet points out to the
Sure.
board. I'm just seeking feedback or approval or,
Yeah, I guess one of the thoughts or suggestions that Mark Hobbit had was maybe there used to be kind of a regular email from the county executive that was sent out to all employees, and different things were highlighted in those emails. Now, I've yet to see one of those emails recently. But the thought was maybe including details of the incident, the commendations for these employees, and specifically having the county executive put that in his next, email blast to all the employees. So I was planning to make sure we did that.
yeah, okay,
Get that in
yeah,
front of,
that's,
right.
yeah, and I do have like, one of his recent, and that would fall right in line with, he
Some of
was
the
talking
things-
about the employee appreciation and.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
So I will definitely do that.
okay,
So,
thank you.
okay, I guess as far as transportation,
Oh, I have a question.
Retention of employees and recruitment is very basic to a organization. We've had people come and people go because they have had incentives from other organizations. I have long been an advocate on this solid waste management board to in exercising our independence from the other county departments in recommending bonuses to our employees. And systematically, annually, it's been a chuckle to the majority, and it has been dismissed time and again. Today, in the work climate where recruitment and retention have risen to the level of emergency action, I think it would be altogether appropriate to provide a financial reward to these employees to show that our actions equal our intentions. And with that, I will defer to the director and the presiding officer to pick up or dismiss that idea.
go ahead.
We've gone through this 50 times, maybe. Every time we go through it, it makes me more frustrated. It makes Paul look like he's the one that wants to give everybody a bonus. And those of us that don't go along with it look like chumps. We've gone to HR. HR has told us countless times that it doesn't work. Who are you gonna give bonuses to? If there's a fire and that's my job, I'm gonna show up at midnight and try to help clean up the mess. Does that mean they get a bonus because they had a fire and the people in the office that are weighing on the scales don't get a bonus? If you wanna start a fight amongst all the employees, and highway department busts their butt when there's an issue. The landfill gets bonuses, the highway department don't get bonuses, and what about the police officers that are out there at some, they didn't get a bonus. I just think if it's a great idea, it sounds good on paper. You start giving somebody a bonus, you disrupt the whole even flow of everything. Plus, HR says that isn't an option, and I believe part of the reason is because it opens up a huge can of worms. I totally get it. The labor is short. It would be neat if we could give everybody a $5 an hour raise and retain everybody. I don't know that that's doable, and quite honestly, it kind of frustrates me that it keeps coming up all the time.
Thank you. So I serve also on the AdvoCap board, and it was an eye-opening experience in relation to this. The finance director and the others, and several of them have been on the board for a long time, described AdvoCap employees, like solid waste management employees, having to go through COVID. Morale was difficult, you know, and they were very adamant to try to have bonuses. So what we have approved is, and I want to say I want to say maybe they used ARPA money or something. I can't remember, and I could let you know, but I'm just gonna say what they did. Every full-time employee got $1,000. It will be getting 1,000, and they're offsetting it, like, let's say they have a new hire and then they're putting it out there like 3 months later, you know, so I mean, they have some rules on that. Tanya, Marco, and Tony Brzezinski from Fond du Lac are the ones that, you know, have this well planned and presented it very well. And it was a, you know, and we discussed it, but the morale, you know, and all that. So anyway, I'm gonna just run through the benefits that they got, just like a couple, 3 months ago. Part-time employees got $750 bonus. They went to a 4-day work week, and they shifted the 4 days so that there was always staff. And that they get a Friday off, or they got 1 day off. I'm just saying, this was, and they went from 32 hours of work, and they're getting paid 40 hours. Because they said, we work hard and we promise we will stay focused. If we can have 1 extra day off, or, you know, even just for like mental wellness and all that type of thing. Okay, so this is what they, and then they also added, we also approved adding the day after Thanksgiving off, as well as Martin Luther King Day off. So that's quite the one-time approval for employee retention, and to express gratitude for the ones that stuck it out. So I'm just wanting to share that. Thank you.
Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Our agenda item is the director's report on department operations, and I think we're drifting far from
Yep.
that.
Yep,
If this is something that the group would like to discuss, I would recommend we put it on a future agenda.
Yeah.
And address it at that time. I'm
Correct.
not in favor of it. But yeah, we can do that.
Does that need a second?
no, we're gonna deal with future agenda items next, so. Well,
I don't know if you want to pull up the revenue.
Which one is that?
Oh, do I have the right one? Okay, gas and energy operations, continue like normal. Whatever the landfill, shares with us, we run as many engines as possible. Lately, it's only been 2. 3 engines is puts too much of a strain on the hill. So we're trying to, when possible, run run two during the peak hours as much as we can, shut it off overnight. Down to one engine, let the hill recover. It's just, it's just continues to be a challenge. One thing of note is, we did have a problem with engine 2R. That's still being, that's our newest engine, so that's a little 635 kW unit, as opposed to engines 3 and 4 are 1 megawatt units. Suffered an issue with cylinder 10 on last week, Monday, and we're still trying to figure out the extent of the damage and how long it's going to be down. But it's likely going to be down for quite a period of time, so. I just talked to Clint Beyer, our mechanical tech, yesterday. He wants to be able to have a little more time to dig in to figure out the extent of the damage, and then we'll discuss bringing Clark Energy in, who's the vendor that we purchased the engine from, to do kind of an analysis of the issue, and I guess try and help us, point us in the right direction as far as repairs go. So right now, we do not have the capability of running engine 2R. We had a planned stack test last week, Wednesday, where you have to have it in full load operation, and you're testing the gas, the emissions from the engine. So we had to postpone that. Hopefully we can get it repaired sometime this fall and get that stack test taken care of. But so right now we're down to 2 engines, 3 and 4. So if we run 3 and 4 together, it uses about 700 to 750 CFM of gas. The hill is only producing about 600 or 650. So it's been a balancing act currently.
That's so frustrating because we bought the smaller engine just to deal
Right.
with that and not that long ago.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Imagine how frustrated Clint is. So anyways, but revenues, as far as revenues go, August revenues were good. We were at 132,832. That's the highest monthly amount that we've had all year. That compares to 148,304 in August of last year. But we had the extra engine available. So through 8 months, we're at 935,623. Our average per month went up a little bit, so we're at about 117,000 per month. No direct use highway gas in August. So it was a good month. Hopefully engines 3 and 4 stay functional until we can get engine 2R fixed and back ready to run, but you just never know with these older motors. So
When you say long term, are we looking a month? Is it possible, or are we looking more than a month?
I don't know the answer to that quite yet.
Okay,
We're hopeful that it's something that we may have to order a few parts for, but we have a lot of spare parts available. But it's not quite knowing the extent of what we're gonna have to fix. So
well,
we're just hoping it's not like any issue with the crankshaft. I guess that's in the back of our mind as worst case scenario.
Yep.
So
well,
Yeah, as a guesstimate, what expenses do we attribute to the work that the engines generate revenue? So if we're getting 140,000 of income, what are we spending to generate, as a ballpark?
offhand, I don't know. It varies from month to month, Paul. I'd have to look into that a little bit more and see what we're at with part purchases, equipment repairs, bringing in vendors.
Well, it seems to me from our experience in the past, the income that we've generated from landfill gas has always exceeded the expenses that we attributed to that function.
Yes,
But of course, as the production reduces, you know, the expenses are gonna be catching up with, the revenue.
Right.
That's generated.
So. I don't even have a guesstimate for you at this point in time, because it varies, So. We're trying to limp things along as best we can. Having 935,000 in the bank through 8 months is pretty good, considering that we've run most of the year with just 3 engines available to us. And knock on wood, we can finish the year strong and then deal with the ramifications of a reduced power purchase agreement next year, so. The other item of note, we are back to being, I guess, fully staffed. We had a gentleman transfer from the highway department and started a couple of weeks ago. Came up to speed fairly quickly and is fitting in well with our group. We also were able to get a temporary project equipment operator person approved through HR and the executive office. We're gonna have one of our equipment operators out for, it appears to be an extended period of time, where the person won't be able to operate heavy equipment. So what HR approved and the executive approved was hiring kind of a temporary project employee, so there are some benefits that come with it. It's at a reduced pay rate, 80% of the equipment operator rate. We offered it to a person that has been helping out from airport, was a summer seasonal at airport. His tenure was gonna end in October, so we're able to, he's been helping out here with grounds, mowing and maintenance items. So we're gonna bring him on board. He starts tomorrow, full-time in our departments, and we'll have him on board for a 6-month window of time. Basically be able to try him out, and if he is fitting in well, the game plan would be to get him a CDL, whether we would supplement some of the expense for that, or he would do it on his own. That's up in the air right now. But get him a CDL, and then maybe he could transition in to that full-time 5th equipment operator that we have in the 2023 budget. So kind of a unique situation that we're in, and HR approved it and the executive approved it. Well, that's good.
So sounds like a win-win for everybody.
Yes.
Well, he's not benefiting.
He is gonna have some benefits with this project position. We specifically asked for a
Does
project.
that include, retirement?
Yes,
Vacation, retirement, health.
That's a good way to get your foot in the door. How old is this guy?
18,
he's young,
just a pup.
Okay.
so.
Well, almost everybody.
Yeah.
It was nice working with him.
He's under 25.
We got to know him a little bit better, and he fits in well with our existing staff, so we think that this is going to definitely be
It's what a great start for him.
absolutely.
Super.
So, I guess I have one other question. I don't know if this is the spot to do it, but I'm gonna do it. The executive office is, looking for updated lists of, veteran employees and committee board members. So we're having to, I guess, redo our roster for solid waste, and I guess I wanted to ask the question if there are any new solid waste management board members that were veterans that, okay, Jim, and you, what branch were you? Maybe, okay. Thank you for your service.
Pat,
What did you say?
his name.
Oh, Pat, you were.
We have you from last year.
Oh, okay, all right, just don't forget me.
Okay.
Yeah, we have you, so.
Paul.
Paul,
Yeah.
how come you didn't tell us that last year?
We did.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Always talking to you guys, always Right.
I have these two beautiful, hearing aids compliments.
Okay, great. So we'll put our final list together. We've got a few employees and a few board members, and we'll push that out to the exec office and hopefully.
Do we get free garbage pickup for a month?
Garbage, free pizza and garbage pickup. And, yeah.
At the same time.
Okay,
Any? All done?
I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. Any future agenda items? Notice it's under an hour, Pat. Just saying. Set next meeting date?
October 5th.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Then October fifth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So second.
It's made and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed?
All right.
All right,
Are
Pat, I'm hanging up on you.
Wait, no,
Okay.
keep that,
Oh, hold
keep
on.
that on there. So.
Our Legion post,